Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down 10 of the most sleeper OP champions, builds, or rune setups that pros are using in patch 10.4 or that are just generally flying under the radar. So if we start things off here with a very underrated top lane champion, it's going to be Zac top. Now this is something that a couple of EU pros have been playing the past couple of days here. Bwipo most notably has been playing it in solo queue and having a lot of success with it. He's been popping off in the games that he's been playing it, and it's a really interesting setup that he's running on this Zac top. He's actually taking Conquer as his keystone. He's going for that Sunfire Cape rush, and this gets even better in this patch here because Sunfire Cape got the buff really nice on Zac, so you can look to rush that on the champion. You can look to go into Spirit Visage second, Warmog's third, and with the Conquer there, you actually do stack it up very quickly on Zac. All of your abilities are almost going to give you instant 10 stacks of Conquer there, so it's going to be really useful on the champion. With the Conquer there combined with your Spirit Visage, the amount of healing you have with this Zac top is actually pretty insane, and if the enemy does not invest into like a Morello or invest into any Executioner's Callings, then you're just going to be healing for a ton in teamfights, and you're just going to be extremely difficult to kill. Now what Bwipo's done for his ability maxing on his Zac top, he's been going W first into E second and then Q last. Usually on Zac jungle you want to go E first and then I think it's W second or Q last, but you don't want to be maxing out that E first on the Zac top lane. You do want to max your W first. So whether or not you play him in the top lane or in the jungle for this patch, Zac is one of the best champions in the game right now due to the changes to Sunfire Cape along with Cinderhawk in 10.4. So if you are going to play him in the jungle, I wouldn't really recommend going for the Conquer setup. I would go for Aftershock, but if you're playing him in the top lane, definitely look to run the Conquer. Now a new rune setup that's getting a lot more popular in 10.4 here for AD carries is taking Nimbus Cloak and Gathering Storm as your secondary runes. This was being played a little bit in last patch. It's getting more and more popular now as the patch does progress here in 10.4, and this is going to be the #1 setup right now on most AD carries for your secondary runes. There's a couple AD carries that are still not really running it a ton in this patch. Ezreal, you don't really want to run it on him because you'd rather go for Mana Flow Band along with Transcendence there. On Twitch, he's still doing better with Inspiration, taking the free boots. With Senna, you still want to go Precision secondary, but with most other AD carries in the game, they're doing best right now with this setup, so it's especially nice on like any immobile AD carry who does not have that gap closer, because when you do use your flash or when you do use like your heal, just that extra movement speed allows you to kite things out a lot nicer and just stay more mobile in team fights. Now if we move on to talking about some of the new junglers that got introduced in this patch here or got buffed so that they can now play in the jungle, we saw Diana, Mordekaiser, Garen, Darius, Talon, Gnar, and Zed all get buffed in this patch, and to start the patch off here, their win rates are pretty abysmal. Like Zed and Gnar have like 36% win rates right now. Talon's isn't that much greater. All of them are below like 45% win rates right now to start the patch off, so it's nothing insane, but I think if there's one jungler who could see some improvement over the patch and over the next few patches here, it would be the Talon jungle. People who are having success with it right now in this patch are actually going for the setup of running Ignite and Smite, so you just have a lot of kill pressure in the early game with your Talon jungle there. You have the ability to very easily invade with this champion. You can obviously jump over walls, so your ability to invade and your ability to just very easily get out, like it's a very low risk invade with Talon. So especially if you're going up against a very weak early game jungler and you can look to duel them super easily, then you can just look to invade, no risk at all, take their camps, and if they do end up collapsing on you, or if the enemy mid or top collapses on you, you can just very easily get away. So I think the champion is pretty strong for solo queue right now if you can play him well. He's got very unique gank paths, and I think that the win rates don't really mean too much to start the patch off here, but overall most of the other junglers just aren't really performing that well that did get buffed in 10.4. So if we move on to an AD carry pick now, Ezreal, a lot of players are still building and they're still taking the wrong rune setup on Ezreal right now for 10.4. Most pro players are just always going for Trinity Force now as their second item on Ezreal. Very few pros are going for the Iceborne Gauntlet anymore, and they're going for the Lethal Tempo as their keystone rune there. So you just have a lot more damage, a lot more carry potential with this setup there. If you go for the Iceborne Gauntlet, yes, you have a bit more survivability. Yes, you do have a bit more kiting potential, but you just lack damage compared to if you go for Trinity Force and compared to if you go for like the Lethal Tempo there. So it just gives you a really nice 2-item spike, and for solo queue, you want to be able to carry games. You don't want to have to rely on your team to carry you. So by going for this setup on Ezreal, it just does give you more solo carry potential. So if we move on to a support pick now that gets a lot stronger in 10.4, it's the Lux pick. So Lux ended up getting 2 buffs in this patch to her Q, 1 to her damage, and then the other to the cooldown on it. So pretty solid buffs overall. What Lux is doing best with right now in this patch is actually running the Aftershock or the Guardian instead of Comet. Comet's actually not doing that great on her right now in 10.4. You just do have more survivability there with the Aftershock and with the Guardian. I think it is pretty matchup dependent though. Like if you're going up against a heavy engaged bot lane, I'd definitely look to run the Aftershock or the Guardian. If you're going up against a more easy matchup, if you're not going to get hard engaged on throughout the laning phase at all, then you can still run the Comet on her, but I would definitely look to switch things up depending on the matchup. For the build setup on Lux there, the Athenes, just that item is so good on Lux because you have the ability to constantly be getting that extra healing out of the Athenes because you're going to be poking a ton with your E and with your Q. You're going to be getting the extra healing very easily there to allow your team to just stay very healthy in team fights. You also do get some damage from it as well. You get damage from Ornn and from the Athenes there, so it's not like you're obviously not going to deal as much damage as you go if you go for something like Ludens, but you're still going to be able to deal a decent amount of damage with the champion while providing your team with a lot more utility. So another top laner that gets a lot stronger in 10.4 is the Poppy pick. So a lot of tanks due to the Sunfire changes do get stronger in 10.4, and Poppy is no exception. She's actually similar to Zac, doing really well with Conquer right now in this patch, and it's a pretty interesting setup. You go Conquer, you go Trinity Force Rush on the Poppy, and you just have, I guess, a little bit more carry potential with this setup. You just have a lot more burst damage. You have the ability to 1v1 a lot better. For your second item there, you're still going to go for the Sunfire Cave, so going for the Trinity Force and Sunfire Cave gives you a really nice 2-item spike on Poppy, and it allows you to carry games extremely hard. Now just keep in mind that you definitely do not have to go for Conquer, and you don't have to go for a Trinity Force Rush. It is more like matchup dependent and depending on what your team needs, depending on how you want to play Poppy. If you're in a more difficult matchup, you can still look to take the Grasp instead of the Conquer. If your team just needs a tank, if you don't really need any damage on your team, you don't have to go for Trinity Force. You can just go for a Sunfire Cape Rush, go for like an Iceborne Gauntlet instead of the Trinity Force to just allow yourself to be a little bit more tanky. So switch up your build, switch up your runes depending on the situation. Nothing should be just set in stone for every single game. Now, if we move on to taking a look at who I think is the best support pick for 10.4 right now, if played to his potential, it's Bard. So Bard right now is just such a great pick for solo queue. He's got direct buffs a while back. He's gotten so many indirect buffs over the past few patches here, with other supports getting nerfed that did pretty well into him. So we've seen Leona get nerfed recently. We've seen Nautilus get nerfed. We've seen the meta starting to shift here as well in other roles. We're seeing more tanks being played, more like heavy engaged tanks. And if you pair Bard up with something like a Zac, a Maokai, an Ornn, like Bard's ability to just find a pick with his ultimate and allow those champions to just close the gap and look for an engage off of your pick with your ult is just so good for solo queue. The champion just overall has so much damage in his kit. He's got a lot of pick potential with that ultimate, great roaming potential. So if played well, I just think he's the best support pick you can play right now for solo queue in 10.4. Now, Bard's doing really well with a bunch of different rune setups as well in this patch, and that's what I kind of want to talk about right now. He's doing extremely good with Guardian in 10.4 here. This rune setup has been going around the past like 2 or 3 patches now. It's getting more and more popular, and I think this setup is super good on Bard if you're going up against an engaged melee support. So if you're going up against a Leona, a Nautilus, a Blitz, just any champion that wants to get on top of you, dive on top of you, the Guardian just counters that so hard, because if Leona dives on top of you, you get the shield from the Guardian, you get the movement speed from the Guardian. It just allows yourself and your AD carry to kite back and make those champions, make those engaged champions a lot less useful. The Electrocute is still really good on the champion. Some Bard players are taking Omni Stone right now, and there's also Hail of Blades that got buffed in this patch here. So there's like 4 different rune pages or 4 different keystone runes that can do well on this champion in this patch. I definitely look to experiment with the Hail of Blades, because with that buff, and once you get a bunch of your meeps collected with Bard, you can deal a ton of burst damage, like coming out of that Hail of Blades, getting your meep damage off just consistently there is going to allow you to kind of be like a burst champion, especially if you go for like a rapid fire cannon as well in your build setup. Now, if we take a look at our first mid lane pick in the video, it's going to be Ornn mid. Now, this is something that's been getting a lot more popular the past couple patches. We've seen Bjergsen been playing in the solo queue recently. Faker's even been playing it. Nemesis has been playing it. A lot of pros have been playing it in solo queue, and we've even seen it, I think, a little bit in pro play already too. It's just a great flex pick at the moment. You can play him either top, mid, or you could even fit him into the jungle sometimes. And I just think that because of how strong of a pick Ornn is at the moment, especially in this patch now, like with the Sunfire Cape buffs here, he's just such an OP pick to where you can throw him in the mid lane, and especially if you're going up against like an AD mid lane champion, you can just do a great job of just countering those picks and making them completely useless. He's not even bad into AP mid lane champions either, because you can go for your Abyssal Mask as your first item. Either Sunfire Cape or Abyssal Mask as your rush are really good items to pick up on Ornn. So just overall, matchups are pretty good in the mid lane. He's got pretty decent roaming potential as well for a mid lane champion, like not compared to something obviously like a Talon or a Kiana, but with your Ornn ultimate there, you got the ability to come in for a gank bot lane, use that ultimate from a pretty long range, and just allow your team to, or allow yourself to set up a really easy kill for your team down bot. So if you're looking for a new champion to pick up in the mid lane, somebody that's really good right now at the moment, obviously he's more of a top lane pick, but if you want to play him in the mid lane, you can have great success with him there as well. So besides Ornn, arguably the best tank top laner now for 10.4 is the Maokai. Maokai with those Sunfire Cape buffs is just so much better at the moment because, like Ornn, you have the ability to proc that extra damage from your Sunfire Cape basically whenever it's off cooldown. So every 10 seconds, you're gonna get that extra damage proc from Sunfire Cape. Your Q is on such a short cooldown once you get it maxed out there with Maokai, so whenever that's up, you're gonna be able to get a lot of benefit from the new Sunfire Cape buffs in this patch. And if you just rush that Sunfire Cape, go into like a Righteous Glory as your second item, you actually just provide your team with so much with this champion. You provide your team with a ton of engage, really easy champion to execute as well, super simple to pick up and start having success with. So if you're looking for a new tank to add to your champion pool in this patch, if Ornn is banned a ton, if you just can't really get him, then Maokai would be my number 2 pick right now, 100%. And then lastly, to round out the video, guys, for another jungle pick here, hands down the most sleeper OP jungler for 10.4 is Trundle. He's just gotten so many great changes over the past few patches now. He got direct buffs, I think 2 or 3 patches ago, which were really nice. It made him a stronger jungle pick. In this patch here, he gets even more good changes because we saw Cinderhulk getting buffed, we've seen Sunfire Cape getting buffed, so we're going to be seeing more tanks being played here in 10.4. Trundle's the best champion in the game, or one of the best champions in the game, into a lot of tank picks. So if we're going to be seeing more Ornn, if we're going to be seeing more Zac, more Maokai, these champions are just great for Trundle because of his ultimate and his ability to just steal those stats and be extremely tanky in fights. And then just keep note of the setup there on Trundle. He's doing great right now with Conquer as his keystone, and then Bone Plating and Revitalize as your secondary runes. Just a lot of healing from this setup here from the Conquer and the Revitalize, increases your 1v1 potential there in the early game. The Bone Plating also makes it very difficult for any champion to beat you in a straight up 1v1, so it just allows you to have great skirmish throughout the first couple levels, and it allows you to really start taking over games with this Trundle pick. Alright, so that's going to be it for the video though, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy. Those are 10 different champions, builds, or rune setups that are extremely sleeper OP right now for 10.4 that you should be looking to pick up. So with that being said, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.